those of you that are that have any desire to record, it is a completely different animal. As a classically trained person, I've recorded with other people on like specific jobs. You got to play the Beethoven, trio, and you've got to be perfect, right? And if the violin messes up, you have to go back and do it all again. Somebody misses one note, but you're done. Or you play for a singer, something happens to their throat, back and forth, especially if you're recording together. But just being in there by myself and just being able to relax and trust that if it didn't come out right, we don't keep it.
We were kind of tense at the beginning.
I was.
And because first time in the recording studio, I've been there, and really understand that suddenly they go, okay, this is a take, go. And then you go, because you can sit there and warm up and not miss a note. But you remember, you may not remember this, but I said, okay, coming in. And she goes, oh God. And I went in, I just turned out the lights. It was not total darkness, but it was just like kind of in here, just kind of. It's because there were these garish lights, and it's amazing how stage lights and microphones that are not properly turned right will just it'll make your technique all freaky crazy. The minute we turned out those lights, you just started breathing, the music started breathing. It was a very, why I think I enjoyed it so much, that freedom instead of control freak, because you were paying for the session. And I said,
well, what I will say is that, kind of in regard to what we're talking about today, when it said something about, the title is talking about taking traditional hymns and making them more modern. Or, and there's so many ways you could go. I could teach a whole 15-week course on it. But what ends up happening is, a lot of it, you kind of have to throw away that perfectionism for a little bit if you're not familiar with changing your style. So if you're classically trained, like how many in here are classically? And if someone says, hey, can you just play me, I don't know, let's do a praise song of this, and you go, I'm sorry, what do you need me to do? I'm totally going off script. So let me also say this. Our session's going to be a little bit different. I've taught in academia, and I've worn lots of different hats, high school, the whole gamut. I don't want this to be like a class. I want this to be a really give and take. That's why he's here, even kind of creating the atmosphere, whether you do it or not. I was going to tell you at the very beginning, God meets us where we are. And I had surgery a month ago, and so I'm going to put my glasses on, take them off, put them on, take them off, because I cannot see you from this side of my face. It's not an excuse, but just to let you know. But it also brings us to this as well, because it is very different when you cannot look at everything, when you want to create something. And I would encourage you, no matter where you are and what you're doing every week or every day, give yourself freedom, like he did with me, to make a mistake. I've been in Molly's sessions, and she said, practice. But it doesn't mean like practice until your fingers are falling off, because no one in the congregation is going to know. If you record, people are going to know. And sometimes, as Joe said to me, the recording process for me was more of a learning thing, and we did put them out, and they're wonderful, and if you want one, I'd love for you to have one. If you don't want one, or you want to check it out, they're on digital platforms. It's on Spotify. I would love for you to just go in and start following me, because I don't make any money off of it, but it looks good. And the more people I have that stream, the more I can spread out my influence and share my gifts. And that's really what it boils down to. As I said, you can look at the handout. I'm not going to read it. If there's anything on there that you have questions about, I am going to leave plenty of time at the end for any kind of questions. But I want to help you just from my experiences. I started when I was young. I started playing at 4 years old. Yeah, that's young. Took piano lessons, but I had a musical family, so if my brothers played something, I would try to play it back. They're 10 and 11 years older than I am, so 2 brothers and the little sister, so that little challenge of, can you play this? And I would play it. And then All through school, I was piano performance, but I also played for choirs in middle school, and I played for musicals in high school. I like all kinds of music. Some of us, like we were talking about, some of us listen to one type of music, and there's nothing wrong with it. So also, please take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. These are just my experiences and my opinions, but it doesn't mean you have to adhere to it. If someone says classical music is really the only pure music that I want, then that is what you want, and that is what God has put on your heart. So you don't have to say to your pastor or your music director, I'm sorry, I'm only playing classical music. That's your own sort of battle to fight, right? But for me, I love all styles of music, and it goes into my creative process. So I listen to everything from classical to jazz to, I'm an 80s girl, so I'm all about the 80s and 70s, and because of my brothers. But I also love big band music, and I love country music, and I love folk music. I like just about all of it. There are a few things I don't like, but I'm not gonna put them out because they're recording me, and the transcript will come up. But I can list all except for a few. But again, everything has value because someone created it. That's
You know what's interesting to me, if I could interject you, because what you're saying is so true. We have to fight the fight with staff and the cultural change within sanctuaries across the country. We're all in there moving away from certain types, and the excuses that are always given is, oh, this is what is contemporary now. And in truth, if that statement were true, you would look at the statistics of what contemporary Christian music is, and it's very low based on what's in the zeitgeist. I wonder why it's always considered such a thin slice of what is available. In other words, it's got to be that sonic sensation of what is on Christian radio, etc., which I'm not criticizing in the least, except saying there are more contemporary sounds swirling in our world that would also reach out, if that's the reason. If that's the reason they're making choices. And one of them is this atmospheric, if you want to call, at one point they call it New Age sounds, but it's listening music, it's soothing music. It's like celebrating the quiet Selah moments in worship versus the clapping moments or the joyful moments that it acknowledges that exists as well. And in a world full of so much noise, it would seem to me that somebody would raise their hand and say, don't you think it might be nice for this instrument that we treasure so to also explore its other options? And I love, me, I like music of all kinds, because there are many things to explore. But why is it that they don't go looking in those arenas for fresh sounds that people would use? I'm sure I don't know. I don't have the answer to it. But when you were performing, I felt like my heartbeat was lowered. I felt like my blood pressure was going down. And I think that's part of our ministry, because we have to, and we're often called on. They stick us behind a fern, and we have to do our stuff behind a fern. That should be the name of a book. Behind the fern, like church piano.
I think Molly referenced that in her last Friend or Foe. Yes, if you guys were here or were not.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of these things of some of us, I've had a church job for several years and on and off in different denominations, and right now I fill in. So someone may say, we need an organist, and they send you a plan ahead of time, and they say, oh, we know this is an Alleluia and Skinner organ. For those of you who didn't know what that is, it's a great organ. And they're like, well, we're doing contemporary music. Can you make the organ sound like that? Oh. And so in my brain, what I say is, sure, we can figure that out, because I'm a can-do kind of girl. And do all of you have church jobs? How many of you have church jobs? And are you all pianists in a church? Okay, and who does not have? Okay. So I'm going to speak to you in that way. If you have questions, please just let me know. As you see, we're making this super informal. It's been a change in progress as we're going, because you've got a lot of information for those of you that have been in all the piano sessions. But part of what you do, and someone asked about this earlier, I was listening to one of Molly's sessions. If you're the pianist or the organist and you're doing contemporary music, a lot of times you get a chord chart. Even if you're classically trained and you see the thing C, you know that's that. But usually if you're going to play it in a contemporary setting, you're going to probably you're going to invert it, do a different inversion. In your handout, I've got some brief things. If you want more information, I have a very detailed handout, but I didn't want to take all the trees and do all of the things. Please feel free to email me anytime. I'm happy to continue any kind of conversation. Because as Joe said, we're all part of kind of the same family of people that we have a task to share our music, but that always sounds like such a nice thing to say. It's a lot of work. And sometimes it's very easy, but sometimes you will get there on a Sunday or on Wednesday or whenever you get your plan, and you look at that and you say, how am I going to do that? So, please, if you have specific questions, it could be that I've been there and I'm more than willing to help. But today oh yes, go ahead.
Did you give us your email?
Yes, my email, Cheryl, Cheryl, CELLON.LindQuist@gmail.com.
Thank you.
It seemed like such a great idea when I got married. Seelan is my maiden name, and if you as we all do, if you Google search me, you're going to get more information if you do all three names versus two. There's a Cheryl Lindquist that plays softball in Minnesota, I think. And we're around the same age. So if you see another picture of me, but I'm wearing like a softball outfit, I don't play softball. So some of the issues we have let's just talk about from the piano. Well, no, let me finish my story. Sorry. So for the organ that day, they wanted, and they had a song leader. So the instrumentation was a keyboard player, guitar player, worship leader, really good worship leader. So that was really helpful. He already had in his mind what he envisioned. And organ for me, and then a bass player. So kind of a motley crew of folks in a very small church with probably 85 people. And they're a mission church, so they have all different types of people. You've got young people with families, you've got older people, but not a lot of older people, more young, but some people just coming in that have never had church. So let's say we did, I'm totally going off script, but what he said was, can we start with the organ? I'd love for you to start with the organ, and let's kind of create that mood, what we were just talking about. So this soundscape. So it's different on the piano, but it's not. We can use pedal, and a lot of contemporary worship songs, like Oceans, for example, if you're familiar, or one of the most, so I looked up the three biggest praise songs of all time. One was Bless the Lord, O my soul, which many of you know. I'm going to put a lot of, as Brad Nick says, crunchy, I call them yummy chords, instead of, right, this is that's what's written. And that was very simple. So for those of you that think this is not my thing, you try different things. I love to add suspensions and ninth chords and seventh chords. I'm all about chords. So if I wanted to do a little bit more with some rhythm, and some different chords, you hear the cluster? That's a cluster chord. I'm just adding, I take the C chord, the second inversion, for those of you that are theorists, and then I add the second tone. So it's a cluster. And it just helps to give a flow. The thing about my experience with modern music versus traditional, the hymns, there's a chord on almost every note. You know, if we did Holy, 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 right? So you guys, you know it very well. You're more than welcome to sing it, but you don't have to. So we'll stay in the key of C. So if we played the hymn. Contemporary, you could follow that same model that I just did, Bless the Lord of my soul, you could do. Now sing it again. Here we go. Right? And all of a sudden, people that have never heard that hymn, that are in a different generation or have never been exposed to I like to call them vintage hymns, the ones that most of us grew up with, they go, oh, that's so cool, you know? Now, in your church, you may have a generation that is so accustomed to that other sound. So, what do? You're not going to please everyone. And I'm even going to go this far. I joked with a friend of mine. I said, I'm going to do it with baking a cake, right? But I'm going there. You bake a cake, you take it to a party. Not everybody's going to like your cake, right? But at the same time, people might try it. They're going to like parts of it. Some people don't like chocolate. They don't like sprinkles, all the different things. For me, when you are dealing with delving into modern music, simple is better.
Yes.
Because most of the time you have other instruments, and everyone wants to share what they have as well. And it goes back down to two of the basic things that I've always been taught my whole life that we forget about in our scrambling. One of them is listening. You've heard this probably from everybody here. But you have to listen to everything around you. And that can actually inspire you. For those of you that get tired of it, or you're just, every Sunday, you're just like, I'm not, it becomes a job, and you start to lose that sense of being where you're supposed to be and letting God use you and use your skills. It's not always easy to do. We've got kids, or you've got 5 other jobs, or you're trying to make ends meet. We're stressed. We have all kinds of things. But I would encourage you to find times where you can just sit down with the piano. Even if you have to show up early to church, or you go, you have one at home, or you have a keyboard. Sit down and just play some things. Fall in love with some things. That's how really good arrangements come around.
You were talking about just added tones. One of the things that you will discover, and what I discovered, is that all your fingers aren't created. If you play the dissonant note loud, it's going to sound wrong and not encouraging in the air. So you have to practice to where that feathered in tone is not as heavy. You can practice on your arm, or you put some Play-Doh down and make every finger go down except the one that has the extra tone. And your hands will shape for these tones, as you know, and eventually you're playing, but to get that, and I'm not bragging or complaining, but I can always tell if I'm on a record or, recordings, because I do recordings, and we talked about this. I can always tell it's me, playing, because there's certain things that I like to make sure are part of my approach. And so when you're playing with a band over and over, say you have a band and you're the rhythm part, you will start thinking vertically. And you'll start becoming a percussion pianist only. But there's so much nuance in between that to create a beautiful sound. You remember when we were at the symposium and we played that clip from Alice Cooper? And so they were interviewing Alice Cooper, who, by the way, is a Christian, believe it or not. It's true. I was on a panel with him out in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was pretty cool. Anyway, he said the reason the Beatles were so successful, they were talking about songwriting and recording, was because everything was so clean and clear. They had a great producer who made sure that not everybody was riffing at the same time, which just clusters up things, muddles it up, and makes it muddy. I think that is one of the sounds in contemporary circles that we don't understand. There's no plan in place for now you, and here let's create some spaciousness in the sonic stack for there to be the spin that we all know exists in, and the world doesn't, when they come in that they don't need all this, it's impossible to do that. So like what you were playing so simply, I just can't agree, I agree 100% with you. It was so clear and so clean, and that added tone was feathered in there. It wasn't a vertical, I mean, it's got a big old fat chord here that sounds like there's a note wrong. It's just the suggestion of the extra tone that just, it causes that spin. And that's what you do so well. Anyway, I just want to point that out because as you explore these added tones, it's going to teach your hands some things, and your ear's going to tell your hands what to do. You have to listen for it, and let the listen to the room. And if that sound is that, you'll hear when I play at the beginning, I'll start out with some little something so I can get a feel of the echo of the room. I always do it. You'll hear me every time. It sounds boring, I know, I get it, but that tells me how hard to play, how thick to play my chords, how much pressure to put on my pinky to ping the melody, or where are the sweet spots in the instrument. Those are the kinds of things that will instantly create this, what did you call it? I loved it. The serene soundscape. Soundscape. I love that term. Soundscape. Let's copyright it.
And all that is if you're in an ensemble, what we're talking about. If it's you could do lots of things. Some people will ask you for things. Again, we could talk about this for a long time, but part of the ways you can change things to making things more modern, you can add rhythm in your left hand. So if we were to take Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, everybody knows. Right, we're three. If we were doing traditional, right, and if you want to do, right, you add some passing tones, it's still very classical, it's beautiful, and also very true and biblical. You'll see, I put scripture here because, to me, when you worship, it's your experience, but also when you are in the church, it's everyone's experience. And you are responsible, whether we want to be or not. We're responsible for the whole room. When it's time for the music, we as the musicians, are we creating a worshipful experience? So if you don't like what you're playing, you have to find a way to start liking it. So whatever that is, whatever you can do to add. But let's say someone wants to make it more popish, shall I say. So we do it in a different way. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways. But here we are, right in this key. So let's say someone's like, come on, let's get with it. That was what my mother would say if she wanted me to do something a little more. So we get the left hand and we start going. Right? And you think, where is she going? But I'm not. So we do the same thing, right? do come out of every blessing. So I'm usually the one that likes to do things peacefully and calm. Because in all of my musical endeavors and craziness, I worked 15-hour days, was running here, doing there, opera, music theater, classical, all the things. School forever just means I survived. Doesn't mean I know anything. I have a doctoral degree, 2 master's degrees, but it's not like, ooh, look at me. It's where my journey took me. So I said, let's do. Right? That's so nice, or something. And then it was, no, let's make it rhythmic, right? So what ended up happening is. And you can still sing it though. You guys want to try it?
Sure.
Let's try it. So I'll just get to the. Come thou fount of every blessing, to my heart and sing thy praise. To thy mercy and thy sweet songs of loudest praise. If you like stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then you think, oh, I'm gonna repeat some of that to give the congregation a minute, right? We're not singing. And then all of a sudden you make it minor.
Always a little sadder. It's like the golden mean for the hymn. That's a really good option. I actually thought about doing that with the Wally Wally thing, improvisation I was doing the other day. But I thought I didn't want it to be sad for Hal. I wanted it to be so.
Yeah,
I thought to myself, I wonder if I should go with the da 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 da. It's really beautiful lines, but I thought it might take it a different place. So I went to the other. I love what you that's one of my favorite moments in the album because it's fresh and it sounds like it's a visual thing. I think
it was different. Yeah,
it's something different.
So you wouldn't do that thing with the congregation, would you?
Well, so if here is where it gets. You can do it with your choir for sure. With the congregation.
If you had a praise team.
If you had a praise team, yes. But what you could do, it depends on what you have. With like a traditional congregation, I would probably do it maybe one time and do it as a where you're really reinforcing that melody. And then you come back to it maybe later in the service and you just say, let's do it again, and then you can add more of your things. There are two sides to that coin. I love the idea of having a congregation. Molly talked about this, but I keep referencing her because I learned something from her this week, which we're always learning from each other. But the fact that she doesn't give the standard sort of introduction for the congregation, which many of us do because they're waiting for it. They've either listened to it for the past 50 years, or they just don't know when to come in, and they're waiting for it, and they don't have someone with the baton or their arms, or looking at your head. I'm a big head person, even because it goes back to my high school, conducting choirs and all of that. And it's also fun because it keeps things light. We get pretty serious in our jobs at church because We have a huge responsibility, and going back to what Joe was saying, when you're trying to kind of, it's not that we want to be in control, but we want to make sure everybody's doing what they're right to do. So we end up going, you're like, come on, right? And it just ends up being this vertical playing, where it doesn't have any kind of cushion, right?
Well, and in the studio, we use what we call click track. And so you really learn for the singers that subdivision is what keeps you on track. So if you had any kind of sort of what she's doing here with the mixed meter, you'll notice her left hand is it's like a sonic click track. I mean, it's beautiful in the texturing and things like that. It's in the background. She's just feathering it in. But that's what the congregation hears. If you've got a good projection and you've got personally good rhythm, when you do it vertically, it loses its energy.
That's true. If you're in a church that has screens, you might be able to do it. Because if the screens go dark while you're doing, or maybe you make this part shorter, and then you do, which kind of gives the, it's like, okay, it's coming, right? And then you go in, and then you go back, and you lead back into the big, that's when they go, okay, it's time for me to sing again, right? Or your choir. So you could, it just might take a few different tries to do it. I know we're probably getting close to time. I'm never going to let you go over, and I don't even know.
We're fine.
Okay, so some other things I wanted to show you. I like to do unanticipated chords in arrangements. So now we're going to kind of come away from the church, but think about your questions, because I really only want to share a few things. Let's look at the handout just to be sure that I tell you exactly. So we have different gifts, grace given to us. As I said, and I don't mean for this to sound like a religious lesson, but what I found in my experience is when I try to take on everything myself, and I forget that God is in complete control over everything, that's when I get into trouble. Or I get these feelings come in that have nothing to do with why am I in church, being part of the church worship. And if you find yourself in that place, I would encourage you to try to figure out a way where you can work that out. Because it will affect everybody around you. And you got the introduction. We don't need to talk about traditional hymns. We did talk about it, where traditional hymns out of the hymnal, everything is vertical. All of the chords are underneath each one. Except when you have, like Up From the Grave He Rose. You get to get out and let the basses do their thing, Praise music. I just wanted to make a comment on the first page. Contemporary worship resonates with younger congregants or people from the congregation. That's generally what they like. I asked my daughter, she's 20, it's all about perspective, right? Because my daughter's 27. And she's into all kinds of music. But I said, what does the word hymn mean to you? And she said, I remember, being in church with my grandparents. She said, it reminds me of my grandparents. And I said, well, what about me? She's like, no, grandparents. And I said, well, what about praise and worship? And she said, rock band. But those are her experiences. Now, I didn't work in the church with a rock band. But that's what she thinks about. Everybody's in their own unique situation. Things have changed a lot, than we talked about over time. And I learned this too. Brad Nick said this one time. Music in churches and in contemporary music, it follows kind of the pop culture. Why is pop culture so popular? I mean, what? And then on the other side, Holy, Holy, Holy was popular in 1925. I looked it up. I really nerded out on this whole thing. I had like 40 pages, right? And then I'm like, how do I make this? I could teach a whole course on this. That's the former teacher in me. It'd be fun to do like a session, several sessions on it. But you can look at every decade what was popular. But Holy, Holy, Holy was written in the 19th century, like 1800s.
It's interesting. Music at its core is a conversation.
It is.
And if you go to California and California talk to you, uptalk and all of that, it's eventually you'll start talking like them. If you go to Carolina, you'll start talking like me, or Texas. I have to almost modify it when I go to New York because they'll just laugh at everything I say. Because that's just how we interpret it. It's interesting to me that contemporary Christian music doesn't really sound like what's on the radio, though.
No.
It just uses some of the traditional instrumentations. I wonder, but I look at if I look at the top, like you did, this CCLI list, and the top 20 CCLI for the most part, have a traditional heart.
That's true, and I would say, they also said that several hymns are getting a resurgence.
Well, Come Thou Fount.
Come Thou Fount, How Great Thou Art. We've got artists like Carrie Underwood and CeCe Winans who are doing things like that. Alan Jackson did a whole album of hymns. Other artists are bringing it back. Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. But
It's just interesting to me how they culture it, it's influenced, but it's like almost like brogue and accents and things in different parts. Many voices, one choir, but I still think it's an odd watching the culture influence and then the church in turn pushing with it or going with the wind to change. I've always said that the most natural thing for it ought to be, people are always calling for a revolution instead of an evolution. Revolutions have too many victims, right? And counter-revolutions. Evolution is a natural thing that just emerges slowly but surely, and I think where we're living in a state where everything's changing so quickly and it's sometimes not natural. It didn't come out of a gradual change. Too many victims. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to give you another example. Let's take Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, usually, right, if we were doing it the way we all were taught, I'm in a kind of a higher key, but, right, this is what we play, right? And then, really big, right? That is church, pure tradition, right? Let's say you have someone that says, oh, can we just make it a little more modern? So, why don't we change the key signature, but not make it a complicated key signature? Let's do something like this. Take it in 4/4. I'm just changing chords. And then people can use their voices and really sing. A lot of times people just want to sing. And so forth.
That's awesome.
Those that are, and they think, oh, I'm singing Amazing Grace. They don't know they're singing in 4/4 instead of 3/4.
Great idea.
They don't think about stuff like that. And then as you're playing, you think, okay, this is fun, but now I want to do something. They've got it. Second verse, or this verse, third verse, I'm going to add a counter melody, right? So I want you guys to think it. You can hum it, sing it however you want to do. So you're, right? So we went. So you're going to hum the melody, and I'm going to play something else. Here we go. really peeing it out. But these are things for you. They're things for everybody, but ultimately it starts with you. And you have to take care of yourself, because as pianists, we are trained to be perfectionists. And if we miss a chord, we think, oh, that's the end of the world. This is live streamed. Oh my gosh, what is going to happen? What are we going to do? Someone's going to bring it up. Ted in the back, he's going to come up and say, oh, there you go. So that was fun.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I guess what I'm trying to say to you is we're all, and I say this to a lot of people that I work with, be nice to yourselves. Take time. We are living in really hard times. Some people, I have a thing, and I know it's kind of gimmicky, but it's something that I choose to do. Someone told me a long time ago, happiness is a choice. Joy is a choice. So I'm a Facebook oldie-timey nerdy, because my daughter makes fun of me. She's 27, by the way. So, but I always put, usually at the end of my things, I put hashtag, even though they're not things anymore, hashtag choose joy. But it's because it's something I remind myself to do. Because I'm an oversharer. I can tell you about my whole life, and you're more than welcome to ask me. But I now want to open it up to you. But I've been through some stuff, and we all have. But when we worship, when we share our gifts, that is where we are allowed to shine and connect. My big thing is connecting with other people. I want other people to know they are not alone. I get really emotional about it. And every day, I sound like a Hallmark card, but it's so true. Every day counts. The moment counts. Be present in the moment. That is not on this handout. That is one of my things that I tell myself. Because if you aren't present in the moment, you might miss something. And having performed and done lots of concerts, in church, to me, it's really not a concert unless it's a special concert. If that's what you like to do, you like to go in and do some, really fun things that are super hard, Right? And I play that horribly, but I'm working on a Christmas album, and I chose it, but, But that's great, as long as you can still keep it in a way. Don't ever let your job at church feel like a performance. And that is the danger in some churches when you go towards the contemporary, because people are working really hard. These are people that they play their guitar at other places, but they come on Sunday. But everybody has something to share. But getting back to it, you're not alone. Make each day count. Do something. Even if it's, like I told my daughter before, even if you just brushed your teeth that day, you accomplished something. Right? But we are a culture of people that are very hard on each other, but more so on ourselves. And as pianists, we are the worst, because we have 88 keys to deal with, we have pedals to deal with, we have pianos to deal with. What if it's out of tune? What if we can go on and on. So,
Questions?
Questions, please.
Here, we got a couple minutes.
yeah, what kind of questions? Anything? Yeah.
Amazing Grace is an N44?
It isn't, but it sure sounds good that way, doesn't it?
I always thought it was.
That's
Yeah.
a 3.
I played it that way.
Traditionally, it's a 3, but 4 gives a little space. I love that you did that.
It's a nice, I
Well,
like the flow.
It's like How Great Thou Art. Sometimes they go, oh Lord my God, when I am, and they do it in 4, and it's really in 3. So you have to know what style, which service you're in, because you can get away with it with a strong company like you were doing right there.
Any questions, guys? Anything? Y'all are so quiet. It's hard to have a session after Dr. Pepper floats, isn't it? Because you're kind of on that sugar rush, and then it's, you sit here and it's like, okay, right? But I'm
So-
happy. Yes.
I think I'm answering my own question, but one of the things that I would need to practice is, if I do make a mistake, getting out of it. Do you
Okay.
know what I mean? And not
Yeah.
freaking out. But, because I'm going to be making mistakes, but getting back to where, do you know what I mean?
I do know
Getting
what you
over
mean.
that fear.
Yes. So, are you talking about if you're reading what's on the page, or
No.
if you're creating something?
Right, if I'm creating.
Okay. So, This will be fun.
Okay.
I'm gonna try a little experiment. I'm gonna go somewhere where I should never go. Okay, but now I have to figure out what I'm gonna do, right?
Okay.
So, let me just think, give him, blah, blah, blah. So many to do. Well, let's take Amazing Grace, for example. You wanna go back to 3?
I don't care, whatever you want.
Well, so, let's do it in 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna change keys too, just to keep it fun for my brain. So I was in key of A, now I'm gonna go to key of F. So. When in doubt, go home. Go back to the
Okay.
tonic chord if you do that.
Okay.
Now, that was kind of fun, and it wasn't the worst mistake I could make. So let me make a worse mistake. You get rid of the stuff, get your pedal up,
Right,
take away all that whoopsies,
right.
and play your melody.
Okay.
Even if you're panicking, you can go do the same thing. I'm gonna do that. Everything I'm doing is because I want to. Because your brain is like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And then you just stay there.
Okay.
You do it twice, it's the right thing.
Right.
Right. But I mean, when in doubt, go back to the tonic chord. Even if you're not there, go back to the original chord because eventually you'll always get there.
There's right back.
Did you see what happened to me last night? Well, I tell you, my pages were stuck together, I don't know, I guess because it was hot in there or something. And I turned it, and I started the introduction and completed the wrong key because I was at the 3rd page. And the other 2 pages were supposed to be, I guess, folded out. And so I was in E flat or something, I had to get back to yeah, I had to do a retro modulation or somehow or other, but I was like, I'm going to die here. You know how it's just
I know.
bigger in your mind than it really is.
Well,
I mean,
you
if we
just
all
wanna
sang
know
in that
who's
same
putting
chord.
it like this.
But I could see Steve Roddy laughing at me because I heard, he knew what I'd done, so I ended up going through like the circle of fifths and finally found it.
More questions? Anything else, you guys?
Cheryl, play us home, play us a little entr'acte for us. Just a sorbet for the ears, so we can,
How about something peaceful?
it's unpeaceful, I mean.
Instead of a get with it, let me just give you something peaceful. hold your breath. It will change your sound, it will change your life. If you can exhale before you start, it's even better. It does something to your body. It relaxes everything in your body, and it gives you a better sound.
Do you hear how she's listening to the room? You know, it's waiting for the decay of the note.
I didn't get to show you that, yeah.
I mean, but the fact that you spent all that spaciousness, we're in such a hurry to get to the next
That's
thing.
true.
And she just allowed the ping to, I love your playing.
Oh, thank you.
Because it just has such restraint and allows us to be, you know, just travel. It's not so kinetic in that way. I just appreciate it, and that's one of my favorite moments on the album. There's a couple of notes where she feathers that little bit of them in there, and it just perfection, and uses all of the keyboard. You remember boom down, and that was stuff, boom, and then up here, and that's sometimes we stay right in the middle all the time, and we don't use the whole
Well,
instrument.
that's true.
And I think that I love the way you score. It's not in our face. I'm a fan.
I've got one more thing I would like to tell you. I'm always singing. I'm always singing the words in my head. If it doesn't have words, I make them up. That's not my own thing. That's something one of my piano teachers gave to me when I was taking lessons years ago. I think I was 13. And he said, let's make up some words to this. This will be fun. And I want to say, it was some sort of Debbie piece. I don't remember which one it was. And we talked about going to the grocery store or something. I mean, it was a very silly thing, but it helped me to shape the notes. So when I'm playing Be Still My Soul, I'm thinking about that. And the words are be still. So the last thing you want is, you know, to sound like the rock version we did of Come Thou Fount. You could do that. That's an interpretation. But does it really adhere to what the words are? Without the words, hymns mean nothing. And I didn't, it's so hard. There's so many things to talk about in 1 hour. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else. I want to thank Joe for having me. It's my first Alleluia conference. So thank you for being here. You didn't have to be after your flows. You could have been somewhere else. I hope you got something that you could take from it. You have my email. Please email me. I'm happy to respond. And if you think of any other questions, I'm here till tomorrow about noon. So you're more than welcome to email me. We can find each other or whatever. But thanks again.
Cheryl, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Very.
Joe. Thanks for